the Admiral overseeing those U.S. strikes on alleged drug boats near Venezuela, is now stepping down. Courtney Hubie joins us saying, Courtney, this comes as a surprise.
Yeah, that's right, Tom. The commander of U.S. Southern Command, Admiral Alvin Halsey, said he is retiring after just 1 year on the job. His command is responsible for the deadly strikes on boats the Trump administration says are carrying drugs and cartel members to the United States. President Trump saying the strikes are necessary to protect Americans, though some lawmakers have questioned the legality of these strikes. In a statement, Admiral Halsey said it's been an honor to serve, but he didn't say why he was retiring. It comes just after President Trump floated the idea of strikes against cartels inside Venezuela and that he authorized covert action there.
Admiral Alvin Halsey is retiring after 1 year. You see that black admiral there. That could be part of it. But actually, there's potentially something more about this, as you heard on the back end of that NBC News report. But before I get to more of those details, we're seeing many of these boats off the coast or anywhere in these international waters, anywhere near Venezuela, where they're shooting and bombing them. This Trump administration has been talking glowingly about their indiscriminate killing of people that they alone claim are drug pushers and cartel people, and they're just blowing people up. Here's a report from someone else besides, this this administration. It has a direct story related to what it is that they're doing.
2 men believed to be Trinbagonians were killed in the latest U.S. drone strike of Venezuelan waters. And now Las Cuevas family is demanding answers.
They say Chad Joseph wasn't a trafficker, just a young man trying to come home. Jensen Levent went to the fishing village to speak with the family.
Like most of the men gathered here at the Las Cuevas fishing depot, Chad Joseph was a fisherman. Both his relatives and residents are denying strenuously that he was involved in drug trafficking. They say his killing was unjust.
When Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar said the United States should kill alleged drug dealers violently, no citizen was listed among the dead. On the U.S.'s 5th airstrike, Trinidadians Chad Joseph and another man identified only as Samaru were among 6 people killed on Tuesday, taking the number of alleged narco-traffickers killed by the U.S. since September 2nd to 27. Joseph's grandfather, Cornell Clement, who denied his grandson was a drug trafficker, says he has no choice but to trust in God. Now he questions the U.S.'s method of dealing with the situation.
So regular folks like that have no power of what it is that this guy in this White House here is doing as far as killing their family members can only trust in God now after there's been more killings. As you heard them say, 5 attacks, 27 people murdered. And we're just supposed to believe them because that's how dictatorships work. They do what they want. They have their positioning. They kill people that they don't think matter. And then they go on TV, including, their nepotism sons go on TV like Eric Trump did here and celebrate the murders while they ignore the fact that these people were real life folks.
And now every single time a boat goes out of Venezuela, it's get blown up into a million pieces, Martha. That's exactly what's happening every single day. I personally have 4 friends that have lost children to fentanyl. This is real life for all of us.
Eric Trump wants you to care about whatever friends he's got that he said have lost people to fentanyl. By the way, I don't believe him. But still, he wants you to care about he and his family. Why should anybody care about you? Why should anybody care about your life? Why should anybody care about the lives of the people that apparently overdosed on fentanyl? I thought they're trash human beings that are all drug addicts, and we need to start kicking them out. Unless they're the kind of drug addicts that aren't homeless and on the streets. If they're rich drug addicts, which would be Eric Trump's friends, then he's concerned about it. Therefore, we should murder people and act like we're actually doing something. I feel like this whole death toll that Eric Trump is talking about that is racking up of all of his friends and family, he should probably take a look at his brother.
On Rumble, going live tonight, 6 p.m. So much to talk about. Government shutdown, corruption in California, taxpayer-funded vacations for insurance commissioners. It's absolutely wild.
And honestly, if the regime media had an ounce of self-awareness or integrity, they would go on the record saying how wrong they were about all of it.
High as but he's got money, so it's okay for him to be high. It's okay for him to be an addict. as you can see, there's a two-tier justice system. There's also levels and biases within our own society that's like, yo, we'll let this guy continue to have a podcast where he's floating, bro. This guy is like glazed over. Call that sumbitch Krispy Kreme. But I want to get back to this Admiral Hosley, who just retired, because there's more details behind this, and I think it really clears this up and shows what's going on. So although it's unclear why Admiral Hosley is suddenly departing less than a year ago into what is typically a 3-year job and in the midst of the biggest operation of his 37-year career, but one current and former U.S. official, both of whom spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss these matters, said that Admiral Hosley had raised concerns about the mission and the attacks on these alleged drug boats. You can imagine that, in a fascist administration, when they're pushing propaganda of just indiscriminately killing people and saying that they're all drug cartels and drug pushers, that when someone who's in charge of this area and in charge of that aspect of the Navy, that they may not want to slap their name on that anymore. That's the first thing I thought. But here's the post from Secretary of War Pete Hegseth about this departure. He said, on behalf of the Department of War, we extend our deepest gratitude to Admiral Alvin Hosley for his more than 37 years of distinguished service to our nation as he plans to retire at year's end. A native of Fort Valley, Georgia, Admiral Hosley has exemplified the highest standards of naval leadership since commissioning through the NROTC program at Morehouse College in 1988. The Secretary of War continued on talking glowingly about Admiral Hosley. They're saying that on the surface because, that's what they're supposed to do, I guess. Not talking about why this happened. Also, Admiral Hosley's statement on his, I was going to say resignation, but retirement. There's not much details as far as why it is that he's doing it, so we could have much answers to it. So here's more. Nor did Admiral Hosley publicly voice any policy objections, urging his command's 1,200 military service members and civilians. In a statement, he said, "Keep charging." But other officials at the Pentagon and on Capitol Hill said the praise masked real policy tensions concerning this Venezuela boat stuff that the admiral and his civilian boss were seeking to paper over. Quote, prior to Trump, I can't think of a combatant commander who left his or her post early ever. That's what Representative Adam Smith of Washington, who's a senior Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee, said. He left after a year. He's supposed to be there for 3 years. We're indiscriminately killing people on boats, which we've seen in some reports. Those folks claim that their family members are not drug dealers. As a matter of fact, the Trump administration is the only one that's claiming they're drug dealers. And when someone asks them questions about how are you going to determine whether or not these are drug dealers, they go, why do you want drugs in our country? Here's more of the revelations. While Hosley has been the highest ranking military officer overseeing these airstrikes, the decision to carry them out has been driven by the White House. And the airstrikes themselves have been conducted by Special Operations Forces, with Admiral Hosley largely cut out of that decision-making. So you can have Pete Hegseth talking about this illustrious 37-year career, and we congratulate him and thank him for his service. But the problem is you've been circumventing his leadership that he's supposed to be in that position to do, but you're definitely willing to use his name and his face and his career, because none of these guys have a career in the Navy like he does, to put their name on it. So they like to use people, and then when they use people and they don't want to be used anymore, the shit kind of hits the fan. And this is that shit. A source told Reuters that there had been tension between the 4-star commander and Hegseth, as well as questions about whether he would be fired in the days leading up to this announcement of a retirement. I think it's a pretty clear picture. I think we don't have to keep on speculating and wondering. We've seen Pete Hegseth firing people that aren't towing the line. We saw his long-ass, boring speech where all the military leaders stood there shaking their heads and trying to figure out why this guy is talking to them like he's some kind of authority that's done anything with his life. The sad part is, he'll probably hire, like Brian Kilmeade to be the next admiral that leads these strikes because, Fox News is big on this. This is when it gets even worse. This is what was mentioned on the back end of that NBC News report. So news of the admiral's departure comes a day after the New York Times also reported that the Trump administration had secretly authorized the CIA to conduct covert action in Venezuela as well. Trump even acknowledged it on Wednesday and said he had authorized the covert action, said the U.S. was considering strikes on Venezuelan territory. So this guy, who keeps boasting and talking about how he should win the Nobel Peace Prize for ending 8 wars that he didn't end, is now boasting again about strikes on Venezuelan territory. That's the second part of after he strikes all in these Venezuelan waters or anywhere surrounding areas. He's starting wars. In fact, he's just carrying out war types of actions without declaring war because he is a rogue fascist. This is our money going to murdering more folks. This is our money going into starting wars in Venezuela that he wants to start because that's in his interests. He thinks we are all here to serve him. That's how a king thinks. So I want you to all to remember, we were talking about these real life folks being killed behind these real life lies from this administration. Also listen to the propaganda that Trump pushes and look at the glee and joy in his voice and what he thinks is him being hardcore.
But we have noticed that there are no ships in the ocean anymore. We're seeing that there's like no ships, when the first one we went, there were hundreds of boats. Now there are no boats. I wonder why. Meaning no drugs are coming across, probably stopping some fishermen too. I mean, to be honest, if I were a fisherman, I wouldn't want to go fishing. Just a nice, let's take a little trip, because I'd say, man, maybe they think I have drugs downstairs. I don't want that. I think the fishing business probably been hurt, but there are literally no boats. This was a boat, and we were surprised to see it.
These folks' lives matter so little to him that as he smirks and laughs and jokes about, maybe some of them are fishermen. We're killing them too. You don't have to listen to me. You don't have to listen to all these lefties with Trump derangement syndrome talking about how he's murdering people indiscriminately and has no basis behind it. He just said it himself. I'm sure the fishing in the business is taking a little hit. Does he understand what type of hit the fishing business would be taking from folks whose livelihoods are based off of that work, that hard work, that actual work, while his lily-livered ass sits up in the White House and smirks and laughs about killing them, and other folks who could be in that position are too afraid to potentially do their jobs? What a piece of shit. But we're going to celebrate him. He's asking for the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, that was just in a press conference in front of a bunch of sycophant type of media figures who don't say things like, you're a horrible person. Why should the American people ever trust anything you do after you keep talking about how you're killing people and you're laughing about it? He also said in front of the UN.
Let's put it this way. People don't like taking big loads of drugs in boats anymore. There aren't too many boats that are traveling on the seas by Venezuela. They tend not to want to travel very quickly anymore. And we've virtually stopped drugs coming into our country by sea. We call them the water drugs. They kill hundreds of thousands of people.
Think about the logic. He's talking about how drugs are killing hundreds of thousands of people, but he doesn't care that he's killing people indiscriminately that are potentially very innocent. He doesn't care about any lives. He's making up the fact that all these folks are dying from these drug boats coming across at these points. He doesn't know anything that he's doing. These are made up, baseless excuses. As you could see, he's gleefully talking about this so much because he thinks that's a tough guy move. That's the main thing he's concerned with. Are you afraid of me? I can kill you. If you talk against me, that's your ass. That's how he thinks. That's a criminal. There's a reason why he's a 34-time felon.